like, you know, being a centibillionaire is not enough. They got to go for more. And the thing is I've never, you can't prove that trickle down economics even works. There's no evidence of that. There's evidence to the contrary, actually, evidence that it doesn't work at all. And what ends up happening is that these, you know, this top 1% ends up just sitting on a huge amount of wealth that does not get recirculated back into the economy in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't. The idea is that if they have more money, then they'll hire more people. They'll give us better benefits. They'll pay us more money. But the thing is that our checks aren't written from the board of directors. That's not where our checks come from. Our checks come from the store that you work at. Like, each store has their own P&L report and labor percentages. Your paychecks are bankrolled off of the store, not the board of directors, not the CEO and CFOs. That's not where your checks, like, I have never gotten a check with a, like, as an employee, I've never gotten a check with a person's name on it. It's the name of a company. That it's always the name of a company. Like, even when I worked for a pretty small company, local company, the guy who owns it, I don't work there anymore because of this. It's actually where I got damaged warehouse work, overworking myself to the point where it damaged my body permanently. Owned by a guy named Chet. You know, when I received my paychecks, it didn't say Chet. It had the, you know, a corporation name on it. So Chet's not wasn't paying my paychecks. It was coming from the facility that I worked at. And it was based on our productivity. And then after that facility balances their P&L report, you know, their controllables and uncontrollables, and, you know, they pay labor, they pay the electricity, they pay, you know, all these costs. What's left over gets sent to Chet, and somehow it's divvied out in a complex way. But, you know, it's mostly controlled by the company, and then Chet basically says, this is my annual fee for owning this company, and takes out a certain percentage of that. But a lot of these multi-conglomerate corporations, they're publicly traded, so a lot of the after the board of directors, the CEO, CFO, and stuff get their paychecks, most of the money gets tied up in the stock market and or with the corporation itself. So, you know, you're not even, like, by supporting trickle down, you're not even supporting, like, a particular individual. You know, like, supporting trickle down economics when it comes to Amazon, you're not supporting Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos isn't writing the checks to his employees. The company that he owns does, Amazon. When the employees get their checks, it probably doesn't say Jeff Bezos and then the amount. It probably says, like, Amos something LLC or Corp on it. I'd be willing to bet. So, you know, and the fact of the matter is I think the top 5 of that 1% here in the United States have not paid any taxes in years. And it used to be that the wealthiest, like, sort of top 1%, paid 30% or 30% tax rate. And now, like, it's I forget what the tax rate for that income bracket is today. It's much lower than that. Like, I think the tax rate percentage for people who basically live in moderate to lower income have a higher percentage tax rate that they have to pay than the top 1%. But most of them have found, again, legal loopholes, which these companies and the people who own them love to do, so that they don't have to pay any taxes at all. Why are we advocating for a company and its prosperity, and we get nothing in return, and all they do is they price us out of house and home, and we're literally saying it's more important for this company to make more profit than it is for us to survive. That's weird. So my message to the right wing was, like, if you want people to have any kind of faith in capitalism, make sure you're advocating for free market capitalism, not crony capitalism. And, you know, like on that subreddit, you know, like, I got treated like a laughingstock, and it's like, you guys are okay with this being price gouged, giving a company money and pretty much getting no service or product in return. They're just taking money from you. They're breaking our economy. They're breaking our society. They're creating homelessness themselves, so that somebody who makes $220 billion a year can make $450 billion a year. You go homeless so that they can do that. Why? Why do you support that? So like I said, these people, it doesn't trickle back down. They just sit on it. Or, you know, do like Jeff Bezos does and take a trip to space. How does that benefit the economy? How does that stimulate the economy? It doesn't. You know, at the end of the day, these people only buy so many beds. They only buy so many clothes. They get to a point where they start buying extra things that we don't even see because they're too expensive, and some state-of-the-art, like, weird technologies that, you know, the general public doesn't even have access to because they have the money for it. But they don't really end up stimulating the economy at all. It's the working class, it's the middle class, and the lower class that stimulate the economy by being able to have expendable income to buy various products. Which would be a lot easier to do if all the basic needs were met, which, you know, food, water, housing, which includes toilets and controlled environment, and medical care. You know, and I think other things, you know, you should have to go to work and you should have to earn, you know, forms of entertainment, you know, like, you know, this TV behind me, you know, that's a luxury item. It's not a need. It's a want. It's a desire. Video game consoles, gaming consoles. It's not a need. It's a want. It's a desire. Things like that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If you want money to buy things like that, then you're gonna have to do that. But the essentials should be met. That's where I stand. But on the civilians, on individual people, I want us to be as free as we possibly can. And this is also why I advocate against prohibitions. And not a big fan of a lot of laws and legalities in existence. because what they do is they restrict people from being themselves. We, when you make something that isn't a crime into a crime, it's still not a crime, but you're still creating real criminals and damaging people's lives. Because, when somebody gets put through the system, they get this black check over their head, and it stays with you for the rest of your life, and it can impact your ability to be employed. It can impact your ability to get housing. It can ruin your life. It can ruin your life. And they sit there and try to pretend like you're doing people a favor by protecting them from themselves. And a lot of people are not free thinkers and think for themselves and they, okay, I was a train wreck, I was into this and like I was being stupid and I got cleaned and I'm on a track of being a better civilian. And once they get out and after they're done making this poster child and making all the TV and everything and the camera's off of them and nobody's doing any reports about them, they go out in the world like, I'm to be a stand-up citizen now. And they get out there and it's like, you can't get a job, you can't get a house, you can't get an apartment, you can't rent, you can't do a lot of stuff because, oh look, you have this drug charge. And they're like, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, there's this complex down the street that'll let you live there. And you go and you live there, and everyone that lives there is kind of in that same bracket. And you're surrounded by all the stuff that you were trying to leave, and then they fall back into it. Or either that you fall back into it because there's nothing else you can do, because it's not rehabilitative. It's not rehabilitative at all. I don't think that, when it comes to substances like prohibitions, I don't think any of that should be criminal, illegal. People don't quit until they're ready to, until they want to, and providing people services like medical services to get clean, it's not something I think that they should be punished for, and you can be punished for it. I mean, if you have a friend or a family member, loved one that's overdosing, you don't use it all. You're completely clean, straight. You take them to the hospital because they're overdosing. In some states, you could be arrested too, even though you don't do anything. Just for, trying to save their life, you could be arrested. And, of course, the person who is overdosing, once they've been revived and resuscitated, all that, and they're dismissed released from the hospital, they leave in cuffs. That's how we treat people. That's not very humanitarian. That's messed up. And, especially if people can use these substances responsibly, then seriously, why are we punishing them? This is messed up. I had a lot of stuff to complain about, a lot. And so, realize that too, watching my channel, is like, I'm not influencing any legislation. All I can do is, I have a small channel. All I can do is come on here and say, that these things are going on in our society, in the system that we're in, and I'm very concerned. It concerns me. I'm not concerned about somebody doing drag. I'm not concerned about people transitioning. I'm not concerned about people being non-binary. I'm not concerned about these things. What I'm concerned about is the growing rate of homelessness, the growing rate of fascism, the growing rate of authoritarianism, the growing rate of chronic pain patients dying. The fact that every major river in the United States has parts of it that the water level is getting so low they can't even get barges through it. That we could be focusing on desalinating water, and the excuse for not doing that is that's too expensive. At that point, you've basically said that being able to make a profit is more important to you than the survival of our species. Pretty much of all species at this point. Like, if all these groundwaters, which a lot of groundwater is disappearing too, all this drought that's drying up the rivers and the lakes and ponds and groundwater and stuff like that. Like, I'm not. People could debate global warming and climate change all they want. Whether you think that's real or not is irrelevant. These bodies of water drying up is very, very, very real, very observable, and very much there. I mean, you can sit around and hope for a giant rain that will bring all this water to us. All you want. Sitting around and hoping doesn't really accomplish much. But we have technology to desalinate water and get it all across the United States. We have the technology to do that today. And we don't because it costs too much money. So profitability is more important than the survival of not just our species, but all the species that depend on these bodies of water for water. We kind of need that to survive. So while everybody's freaking out about these things that seem very, very, very irrelevant, non-concerning, benign, something you shouldn't be concerned about at all, there are very, very real problems that are affecting people's lives to the point where we're getting to human right violations, we're getting into police state, we're getting into very, very, very big government, like to the point of authoritarianism, totalitarianism, dictatorship type stuff. I've talked about this too. All law enforcement agencies have access to our medical files now. It was designed to monitor chronic pain patients and the distribution of the medications that we take for pain, which are opioids and opiates. Oh my God, those are so bad and horrible and awful. But, the other things that they do for pain, those are just fine. They're great. Wonderful. Ha! Never mind that they're like 100 times more expensive, and some of them have withdrawals that can last the rest of your life. Some of them you can never get off of, because if you get off of them, it can kill you. Never mind that you don't need to overdose on them for them to kill you. They can just kill you. Yeah, I've talked about this. Gabapentinoids, pregabalin, gabapentin. Without insurance, one bottle, 1 month supply can cost up to $1,111. But, like a bottle of tramadol, that's only like maybe $20 without insurance. Or hydrocodone, that's only like maybe $30 without insurance. Hydrocodone's really hard to abuse too, because it's got acetaminophen in it. It's got acetaminophen. You can't sit there and pop those. The acetaminophen will kill you before the opiate does. Yeah, that's very hard stuff to abuse because of the acetaminophen that's in it. And yeah, so the CDC pretty much took away the safest opioids and opiates available and left the population with the most dangerous opioids and opiates, like heroin, illicit fentanyl. We're not talking about prescribed fentanyl, like, you know, what they prescribe to cancer patients and end of life care. Illicit fentanyl, and you know, they've gone ahead and drug cartel has mixed that in with all kinds of different drugs. I actually know somebody who overdosed because there was fentanyl in their weed. So this wasn't, you know, state-grown weed. This was drug cartel weed and had fentanyl in it, and they smoked it and they died. They overdosed and they died. Actually, it was a woman that lived down the street of my fiance's sister. She died from a fentanyl overdose. She didn't even know she was, you know, smoking fentanyl. She thought it was weed. She didn't know there was fentanyl in it. You know, we found hallucinogens, or, you know, ecstasy pills with fentanyl in it. We found cocaine and crack with fentanyl in it. Very, very powerful stuff. A lot of people have done it, not knowing that they were even doing fentanyl, and overdosed and died. Anyway, so the other, like, the dangerous opiates that they left us with is, you know, like, illicit stuff, or the illicit side, which is heroin and fentanyl, and they've mixed it. And then, you know, on the prescribed side, it's buprenorphine, which is Suboxone, and methadone. And those methadone and buprenorphine are the hardest opioids to get off of. I know buprenorphine is an actual opiate, but I'm not sure methadone is an opiate. I think it's an opioid. But regardless of their opioids or opiates, they're some of the hardest to get off of because their half-life is a really long time. Some people have told me, like, people I know that have had OUD, opiate use disorder, who have been on Suboxone and methadone for treatment. They've told me, like, it took them an entire year of being off of it before they felt normal again, because the withdrawals are 6 months. 6 months of opiate withdrawals that's intense. That's intense. Regular heroin, just heroin by itself, not mixed with fentanyl. Heroin is only 1 week. And fentanyl, again, that's 6 months. And the thing with buprenorphine, Suboxone, and methadone is that within 3 months of taking this, your teeth will rot and fall out. So the CDC, to try and save us from ourselves, to stop the overdosing problem, took away the safest opiates available, which would be, you know, tramadol, hydrocodone. Dare I say, I hate to tell you, I know Purdue Pharma had a really dirty marketing campaign. I hate marketing. I hate commercialism. I'm against it, because the whole concept behind commercialism is to manipulate you into playing on your insecurities and stuff, and manipulate you into thinking that you need something you don't, or I mean, there's all kinds of dirty marketing tactics that they do in commercialism. But and Purdue Pharma was guilty of that. I have no doubt of that. But their product, OxyContin, that's much safer to take than the stuff they're selling on the street, especially now that heroin's mixed with fentanyl. I would say regular heroin is probably safer than buprenorphine, Suboxone, and methadone. And in fact, there are other countries, how they handle opiate use disorder. Instead of using Suboxone or methadone, what they do is they use medical grade heroin, and it has a very particular chemical name and profile. I forget what it's called, but they use medical grade heroin to taper people with opiate use disorder who are addicted to heroin, to taper them off of heroin. And they have a much higher success rate at recovery than we do here in the United States using Suboxone and methadone. Can you imagine that? And I believe Canada is going in the direction of, let's replace the contaminated supply with a safe supply. And if you have opiate use disorder and are a heroin user, there are clinics that you can go to where they will give you medical grade heroin to keep you from using the contaminated heroin that's contaminated with fentanyl and sometimes even stronger stuff like acetafentanil. So you get medical grade heroin instead of a contaminated supply. So what the CDC has done here in the United States is they've taken away, and Percocet's one of them too, they've taken away the safest opioids and opiates you could possibly get. And now, to the public, regardless of what you're using it for recreational or for utilitarian purposes, they've left us with the most dangerous. So this is an extension of prohibition, and now, you know, if you go to your doctor and let's say you've started managing your pain yourself because you've been abandoned, and you go to a doctor and you're like, help me, I want off of this stuff, I want to switch to a different medication, I don't want this stuff anymore. You get OUD written in your medical chart, and you will never have an opiate or opioid pain medication ever prescribed to you again. Even if you try something else and you're like, okay, this is even worse, just put me on the opiate. I'd rather deal with that than this. You know, pros and cons, risks, benefits. I mean, really, it's up to each individual. I respect each individual's choice and preference on what they want to use to manage their pain. But the way that the current system works, it's like you can't even do that, and it's not even respected. Like I said, you go to your doctor and you're like, help me, let's taper off of this and do something else. They won't taper you off of it. You'll have to do that yourself, or you just have to go through the withdrawals. And they'll put OUD or SUD, depending, like if it's not an opiate, they'll put SUD, substance use disorder. And no doctor will touch you. And like I said, because of our XSAS software program, all law enforcement agencies have access to your medical records. So local authorities, well, you become really interesting to them. And they see that OUD and whatever you're using to manage your pain, so there's various things you could be doing. You now become very interesting to your local law enforcement because they can see your medical record. Yeah. And I've asked people, are we okay? We're okay with this. We're okay with the law enforcement agencies. And this is transferable across state line. And they go, well, I don't see how this could be abused. Oh, really? Really? What about all the red states where they're making it illegal to access HRT and gender-affirming care, even for adults? What about that? What about all these red states doing anti-abortion stuff? And you know, they say, well, you can go to another state and get it that says it's okay. And then these red states, some of them have been encouraging civilians to rat on each other. And you know, if somebody's going out of state to get an abortion performed because they're in a state that's now illegal, they want that civilian to go to the local law enforcement and say, this person is going out of state to get an abortion. And so that they can arrest them. Well, they don't need to. You don't need civilians to snitch on each other, to rat on each other, when you have a software program like RxSAS, because all they have to do is pull up the dashboard of RxSAS, and they can see what doctor you're going to, what they're seeing you for, what they're prescribing to you, what pharmacy you go to. They even can see if you've paid for the medication with cash, debit, or credit. The reason why is because the NARTRAX score red flags you as drug-seeking behavior if you pay for your medications with cash. Yeah. So, yeah, this can be used inappropriately, and it's something we should be protesting. It doesn't matter if you're a chronic pain patient, disabled, chronic illness, or not. Like, even if you're a full able-bodied person, the rapport that you have with your medical care professional should be private. You know, your doctor should not be an extension of the Department of Justice. You should be able to go to your doctor with privacy and confidence and be able to say whatever's going on, because their job is to treat, not judge. Like, if you go to them and you say, like, for example, let's just say you're like, well, I've been trying to get ends to meet, so I've started engaging in prostitution. I think I might have an STI. Can you please test me? You should be able to get that done without being turned into the police for prostitution. Or you should be able to go to your doctor and say, I've started using amphetamines to help with my ADHD, and now I'm really addicted, and I want off of it because it's negatively impacting my life. I'm not able to control myself and use this responsibly anymore. And I fear for my safety, my well-being. I think your doctor should be able to help you without you being turned into the police and arrested and have your life ruined. And likewise, if you can use something like that responsibly, and you tell your doctor, well, yeah, I do use this as a form of self-medication, you use it responsibly, that might be something your doctor needs to know if they need to prescribe you medications in the future for underlying health conditions and whatnot. They probably want to know what kind of substances you're taking, or what, because, technically, in some form or fashion, this is a form of medication. And they don't want to prescribe you something that conflicts with what you're taking, that could hurt you. So it's important for them to know these things, and that you as the patient can talk to your doctor about it in confidentiality and not fear that you're going to walk out and be greeted by the police. That makes it so people don't want to tell the truth. It's gotten to the point even like that this is messed up. This is very misogynistic, victim-blamey. But if you're a survivor, a victim of childhood trauma, sexual abuse, NARTRAX will red flag you as a drug seeker. So you can't even be you can't even be honest with your doctor about something that is vitally important to probably communicate with them. That's tragic. That's messed up. It's also not healthcare for all when you have somebody going to the ER and they find out that they have illicit substances in them, and they're discharged. A week later, they die from a medical condition that could have easily been treated, but they were discharged because they just you have illicit drugs, you're drug seeking, you have substance use disorder, you're this, you're that, all these negative stigmatizations, negative stereotypes, etc., and they don't actually treat a problem. Like, let's say you have like a blood clot or something like that. Nope, it breaks off, goes to your heart, goes to your brain. Oops, you're dead. Because they didn't want to treat you because you had illicit drugs in your system. That's awful. That's not healthcare for all. That's healthcare only for people who have jobs, or people who are model citizens, people who shut up and don't think for themselves and do exactly as they're told. And it's discriminatory. It's messed up, and it creates, I would call that a human right violation. So I hope we're clear on this, and like I said, if you think that I've said anything that's out of place, out of turn, I'd rather you reach out to me. If you hate me so much that you feel the need to just randomly go around flagging my videos, please don't do that. I'm a small channel. I have no defense against it. You're just being a dream killer. You're killing something that I've worked very hard on, and I would rather you just reach out to me, and I can make it private. I can take it down or something, but don't strike my channel out to the point where it's just gone. No idea the work that I put into this. And I don't want to be misunderstood either. I hope that whoever watches this, I hope you watch. I know it's long. Maybe I'll break it into pieces, but so yeah, I am a leftist. Working within the system, I would be classified as a libertarian-socialist. Really mindset kind of on an anarchistic sort of mindset, but not chaos anarchy of like violence and all that. Like, I have those 5 rules, but working within the system, I advocate for the mixed economy of socialist capitalism, of free market capitalism, and socialism, as social safety nets and regulations on capitalism to stop crony capitalism, exploitative capitalism. Yeah, that's where I stand. So I'm anti-fascist. I'm anti-bigotry. I'm anti-corporatist, anti-commercialism, rustic bohemian, encourage people to be themselves, think for themselves. A lot of these big content creators, they say that they advocate for thinking for yourselves, but really it's more like, if you think exactly how I tell you to, then you're thinking for yourself. But if you deviate outside of that, then you're a problem, unless your thoughts streamline directly with mine, which that's not advocating for thinking for yourself. That's that's sort of acting like that's turning the political position into dogmatic politics, like turning politics into sort of a secularist religion at that point. Cult-like behavior, I say that's not thinking for yourself. But I advocate for thinking for yourself. I advocate for people being free, and not fitting into a box, a label, or category, and being beyond that, being beyond the social norms. I advocate for that. Be weird and be proud of it. Be strange and be proud of it. Not everyone has the ability to be brave enough to be themselves through and through.
And even
for the goth community, I have that supposedly advocates for such things of individualism, individual expression. I've freaked a lot of them out. Like I said, I knew goth becoming fad and trendy was inevitable. They, mainstream culture did it with the hippies, they did it with the punks, they did it with the beatniks. I knew it was a matter of time before they did it with goth. Thank goodness it's going more in the direction like what they did with hippies and then punk and creating, they created pop punk. So at least that, but it's still sort of more trendy than what it used to be as more existing as a counterculture. But, like my fascination with postmortem daguerreotypes has freaked some people out. I find those things intriguing. I studied photography. I've done a lot of artwork, and so that's I do a lot of dark art myself, which a lot has to be censored because it's dark. And I have to explain to people that, I do not advocate or condone a lot of the subject matters that my art is centered around. So a lot of my art is centered around tragedy and the darker aspects of life, of pain, and tragic things that people experience and go through, like being a survivor of childhood trauma and abuse, and some other subjects. And I have to censor those things now. I'm not condoning these things. I'm talking about them because they exist, and people can relate and identify. And I think that helps people feel better when somebody reaches out and says, I understand. That I'm not afraid to talk about these things. But with all the you can't say this, you can't say that sort of censorship stuff going around, that's getting harder and harder to do. It's not that I'm afraid, it's more that, well, if I do it, it's gonna shut me down. So going forward and making videos, I'm gonna have to be careful. And it's like walking on eggshells. And another thing that I advocate for that people might misunderstand is I don't believe in pejorative words. I don't believe they exist. A pagan friend of mine told me once, something only has power if you give it to it. This is very much how I think about pejorative language, is that I think a word only carries pejorative meaning and power if we give it to it. And I want to destroy the notion of pejorative language even existing by taking that power away from it, by not believing in pejorative language. I don't like the fact that there's words out there that exist that when people hear it, it can destroy their day. It's, like a pejorative language that's used towards me often by, the far right that doesn't like homosexuals like myself. They use the cigarette word. I try to own that word, and it's no different to me than saying homosexual or gay. That, yeah, I am. I don't have a problem with it. To me, it sounds more like your problem than mine. It's kind of like I had an ex-boyfriend accuse me of having an addictive personality because I had smoked a cigarette and smoked weed, and he said to me, "How long have you had an addictive personality? Probably your whole life, huh?" and I said, hey, I'm perfectly fine with my addictions. You're the one that has a problem with them. I'm perfectly comfortable. This video's gone on long enough, so yeah, I think I advocate for a lot, but I had to switch over to this camera. Ran out of space on the other one, but it's gone on long enough. So if you have any other questions on stances that I hold or have, reach out and ask. Don't assume. You know, yeah, with that, like, share, subscribe, and comment, and all that. And I'll try to leave link to the 2 Creaming Jesus albums I was listening to in the description. So.